welcome again to another book talk, and this time it's for I'll Be Right There by Kyung-Sook Shin. Kyung-Sook Shin is a South Korean writer, and this book was originally written in no, not South Korean. It was originally written in Korean, and it was translated into the English by Sora Kim-Russell. This book was published in 2010, and it was translated in 2013. So, this is a fairly recent book. I must say that this was actually a book that I chose to read during Women in Translation Month in August. And you could just imagine what month it is right now. It's already October. So I kind of took quite a while to finish this book. In fact, this was actually the last book that I started for Women in Translation. I started this book in the end of August, and I only finished it, I think, sometime a little bit after mid-September. So yeah, I actually like this book. After finishing it, I must say that I really adore this book. It's a really good book. I gave it 5 stars, but it must be really strange why I actually took a long time to start reading this book. And part of the reason why I took a while to start reading this book, even though I kind of started reading the first few pages sometime in mid-August. I didn't exactly get into the meat of this book at the time because, well, it's actually the same reason why I ended up liking this book, and it's because that this book, I'll Be Right There, is a very I would say kind of a somber, melancholic book. It starts really slow, and it also develops kind of slowly and quietly. It is not a book that has a lot of explosion. I think there are explosions, but it's not a book that is really explosive or super fast paced or really filled with things that excite you all the time in every chapter. I mean, there are things that could excite you, like relationships, friendships, people eating together. I mean, if you are excited about all of those things, then yeah, this book is certainly going to excite you. But if you are interested in books that has things like dragons or car chases or spies, I think there may be spies. If you are interested in those things, then I would say I'll Be Right There is not the right book for you to be excited about. But anyway, like I said, this book is literally filled with human relationships. In fact, that is actually the core of this book. And I think that is probably the most general way you could describe this book. This book is literally about human relationship. By relationship, I mean family relationship, friendship, love, relationship between student and teacher. Literally, I just realized that all of those relationships are in here. So, what is this book about? So, the central character of this book is actually a young woman named Chung Yun, and as a teenager, she lost her mother. Her mother died from sickness, and she later kind of lives with her cousin, and after that, she attends university. And her loss, her mother's loss, was actually something that affects her because it happened so early in her life, and it has been something that is kind of lingering in the back of her head. It is kind of like a shadow. If you could just kind of imagine how it feels for her, it feels like a shadow, a cloud, a dark cloud above her mother's death. So that pretty much just sets the tone for the rest of this story. From the start, we already see the main character experiencing some sort of loss, and loss feels like a recurrent theme in this whole book. It kind of feels like this book already has this constant humming going on in the background. that one note humming that just pretty much won't go away. It feels kind of annoying, but it's there, and eventually you just feel like you have to just get used to it, because that humming is not going to go away from this book, and that's how it feels like. Loss and grief feels like a thing that is going to stay in this book and it won't go away. I mean, just look at this cover. Like, you don't look at this cover and feel like super elated, right? I mean, if this is how you look like when you're happy, but look at this. It's gray, and there are hairs in the face, and it's so downcast. And I would say that this cover is probably one of the best covers I've ever seen this year, because it really captures the mood of this book. And so back to the story. So we have this character named Chung-Yoon, and in university, she meets with two people, especially. And these two people, one is a guy, another one is a girl. The guy, his name is Myung-soo, and the girl, her name is Yoon Miru, or we'll just call her Miru. And she and these people, they attend the same class that was taught by Professor Yoon. And through this class and through their interactions together, these three people, they become friends. But even though they are friends, there are still mysterious stuff happening to these people in their history, in each of their history. So they do not come from a place of true happiness. Some shitty stuff has been happening to each of these characters. We know that Jung-Yoon has lost her mother, but the other characters also have experienced some kind of really awful stuff. And especially, this is like a minor, it's not a spoiler, but kind of like something for you to expect. Yoon Miru is a character who has tons of crazy stuff happening when she was younger. So watch out for that if you ever got into this book. Miru is going to be a really interesting character. And because these characters, they have their own baggage from whatever that is happening in their past, and on top of that, the story is also taking place in 1980 South Korea, where it wasn't actually a happy time. It wasn't a peaceful time. There were demonstrations, there were protests, there were student riots happening in the streets because they were demanding for a change in government. They were demanding for democracy. They were demanding for freedom. And when you couple that current setting with how the characters are trying to deal with things that have happened to them in the past, you get people who are really complex. They enjoy each other's company. All of these characters, they enjoy each other's company as friends, but at the same time, they have things that really prevent them from being really, really happy, because deep down they are still trying to just kind of fix things that they have, things that they have to deal with because of the bad things that have happened to them, that have broke them inside. And you could just kind of imagine how people just how these people, they just kind of try to live their life in the present with the company of good friends, I must say, and at the same time just trying to juggle all of that happiness with all of the craziness that is currently happening around them in their society, and also all of the memories. Another interesting thing about this book is that I said earlier that this book takes place in 1980s South Korea, and it was a time of political turmoil in South Korea. But I did not know anything about that prior to reading this book. And despite the fact that I did not know anything about South Korean history, especially the ones that were really close to the setting of this book, it actually did not deter me from really enjoying this book. It did not diminish my enjoyment of this book. And in fact, if you read this book, you'll see that the events that are happening in the setting, the stuff with the student riots, the demonstrations, they were just mentioned as demonstrations and protests, but the author did not exactly specify what those events are, why those events are happening, and what are the motivations of those events, what are the aftermath. She does not go into details into all of those things. And I think that really helps because it really allows the reader, especially the ones who are not familiar with the history, to be really engrossed with the lives of the character here. And it certainly has that effect on me. As a result, I was really able to just kind of enjoy the journey of the characters. And as a result, I was really able to kind of enjoy the characters' journey as they interact with each other, hang out with each other, and as their relationship, as their love, as their friendship towards one another evolves. And that, I think, is probably the most beautiful thing about this book. And and I would say that it allows people from so many different so many different parts of the world, with so many different levels of familiarity of South Korean history, South Korean society. Then I think they will still be able to enjoy this book because it does not require all of those things. All it requires is for you to just kind of understand how it feels to being friends to another person, how it feels to love someone, how it feels to lose someone. And those are the things that are really important. If you can understand those things, then you will be able to get into this book. So that's it for all of my thoughts on this book. I really enjoyed it, and I feel kind of a little bit of regret that I did not get into this book as early as possible, because it ended up being a book that I really, really like. But I finished this and I enjoyed myself, and I'm happy that I did that. So if you ever have the opportunity to read this book, I highly recommend it. It might not be your cup of tea, with the whole slow pace and character driven story, and this whole really somber melancholic tone. Those are just the things that you could expect while getting into this story. But if you don't mind all of those things, or if you like those things, then you should totally get this. You should totally read this book. So I guess that's it for now. So until then, I'll see you again in a different video. So take care. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.